What's up guys? This is Evan with Backwoods Adventure Mods. Today we're going to go over our brand new 3rd Gen Tundra rear bumper. This is an easy install. It's a steel unit that replaces the center section. Your end caps are going to stay. It integrates with your factory tow hitch so your tow rating isn't affected. The trailer wiring, parking sensors, license plate lights all integrate into the new bumper. We've added some 3/4 inch shackle mounts for recovery points, as well as a place to mount your backup lights. The whole pattern is compatible with the Baja Designs S2, as well as the Pathfinder scene lights. When you open the box, you'll see the bumper, the frame mounts, mounting hardware, some block-off plates in case you don't have your lights yet. And to do the install, it's pretty basic. You'll just need a socket set, wrench set, screwdriver, a trim tool, and that's it. Let's get started. We're going to start by disconnecting the wiring. On the driver's side, you'll have the tow package wiring. There's a little tab on top that you push down and wiggle it off. On the passenger side, there are 3 plugs and a module just inboard of the frame rail. Some of the hardware is going to be hidden under this top cap on each side and this little cover plate on each side. So grab a pry bar or a trim tool and pop it up. Same thing on the other side. We've got just a few bolts to take out on each side. Underneath the covers, there are these 3 that are a 12mm head. And then just under here, there's one that uses a 10mm socket. The same thing on the other side. The hardware's out of the main part of the bumper. Now we just need to release the wiring that's plugged into the 2 sensors behind this cap. So we're going to remove these 3 little plastic push clips and then pop this cap out away from the rest of it and unplug those 2 sensors. So we're going to remove this plug from this sensor, and this sensor it's easier just to take out of the housing. And these 2 little blue tabs on top and bottom of this sensor, pull those apart gently, push the sensor out from the front. There are a couple clips holding the wiring harness in place. We'll pop those out. There's one more underneath the vehicle. So this, it's actually easier to get behind it and squeeze the little tabs that hold it in place. That way you don't break it when you take it out. You're squeezing these 2 tabs. So we'll route these wires out, and now the bumper can come off. Before we put the bumper on the truck, we want to pre-assemble it and transfer all the wiring and sensors from the old bumper to the new bumper. So we're going to start by unclipping the wiring harness all along, and we'll set it over across to the new bumper. We're going to remove the parking sensors from their housings. So these little red tabs, and they're blue on the other one. I'm going to pull one up and the other down and push the sensor out from the front. We'll unplug the license plate lights. Make sure you remember which was the passenger side and which was the driver's side. Now we'll work on disassembling this bumper the rest of the way so we can get the lights out. We're going to take out these bolts. They use a 12mm socket. We're going to take out several of these little plastic push pins. Take out the trailer plug. Take this middle one out. Then this cap is snapped in by two clips. Sometimes they come out easy, sometimes not. Next, we'll take the license plate lights out. Lastly, we're going to reuse the parking sensor housings. So these here, we're going to put in the new bumper. They're just taped on. We're going to tape them back on, but first we need to peel the tape from the factory bumper. Remember the orientation. Remember which side was on the passenger side and remember which way was up. All right, at this point, we'll install the parking sensor housings, the parking sensors, the wiring, the license plate lights, the trailer plug, the license plate itself, and we'll secure part of the wiring. So first, we'll do the parking sensor housings. Now I mentioned they were taped on with a double-sided foam tape. We're gonna peel off any big chunks that are gonna not let it sit flat, which I've already partially done. And then we're gonna cut some short pieces of the 3M VHB tape that we supply to reattach it. We'll go ahead and snap this in to get it out of the way. And then these are actually labeled right and left in case you get them mixed up. We're going to take the clip nut and slide it on this tab. And for this side, we'll use a bolt and a nut. Now, to get the best alignment, this tab will sit on top of the metal bracket, this tab will sit underneath. So it's going to go on like this. To make it a little easier to tighten down, we're going to put the nut in place ahead of time, and I'm going to bring the wrench in from the top side of the bumper, from the front side, and put the nut in place. Makes it a lot easier if you're doing this by yourself. Same thing on the other side. Okay, now we're going to snap in the parking sensors and put on the license plate. Now this little guy is going to share the license plate bolt on this side. This bracket here will share this license plate bolt. And then you'll use a zip tie to connect this wiring harness to this tab. If you have lights to put in, now's the time to do it. We're not putting any in today, so we're going to use the delete plates. The bumper's prepped and ready to be installed. Now we're going to hang the brackets on the frame. Quick note, if this little plastic piece didn't pop off when you remove the bumper, pop it off now. Look a lot cooler if it would pop off when I said. So this is the bracket for the passenger side. It's going to utilize these massive bolts that hold the trailer hitch on. So we're not going to take the bolts out, we're just going to take the 3 nuts off the bolts, and we'll slide this on and put the nuts on snug but not completely tight. We're just going to slide this on those bolts and put the nuts back on. The mounts are on and snug, but it's not completely tight, so there will be a little bit of final adjustment. The mounts we just put on have weld nuts on the back, so they're threaded holes. So we're going to hang the bumper on the hitch, on the mounts, line up the bolts, and get them started. I want to make a quick note about adjustability. You're probably going to need this bracket to slide rearward. On some trucks, and this is one of them, this little weld nut is going to stop this bracket from coming back. So you have two options. You can either twist it off, or you can just barely bend up this flange, and I'm just going to bend it up a little bit. That should be enough. Now we can slide this mount rearward to make it easier to put the bumper on. Put the ends of your wiring harnesses on the top side of the bumper. That'll keep it from getting pinched between the hitch and the bumper when you put it on. After it's on, we're going to tuck it in behind the hitch. Now crawl under and make sure that none of the wires are pinched anywhere, and put a few of your bolts in. All the bolts are in and hand tight. Before we do any adjustment, I want to plug our sensor plugs back in so we can snap the bumper cap back together. I'm going to route them back the way they came. Same on the other side. After we made this video and doing a bunch more of these installs, we noticed that the frame and the body of the trucks aren't necessarily always perfectly centered. We designed our bumper to be centered perfectly on the frame, so sometimes the bumper might appear shifted left or right. So to combat that, we're now providing these shims. When you do the initial install with your bumper, you're going to put in 2 shims per side. We send 4 total. After you get the bolts tightened down, if the bumper is shifted offset to one way, grab 1 shim and shift it over to the other side. So you might need 3 and 1, or if it's really bad, maybe 4 on one side and none on the other side. These shims are designed with this little tab here, which is actually just a handle, and they're designed so that you can leave the top 2 bolts in and slide it up around the top 2 bolts. Then you can put the bottom 2 bolts in to hold it. On this truck, the frame was actually very well centered, so we're going to do 2 and 2. So right now I have the bumper loosely installed. I have only the top bolts in. I've determined that since this frame and body and everything is really centered, I'm going to use 2 shims per side. So I'm going to stack them together, hang onto the handle, and kind of slide them up from the bottom into place, and then put the lower 2 bolts in. At this point, you can continue on with the rest of the install. First point of adjustment is going to be in and out, fore and aft on the truck. I'm going to push this one in just a little bit more. Personally, I like it to stick out just a hair. You can adjust it however you like. So I'm going to adjust it in and then up. And this is a 2-person job in my opinion. Some person to hold the bumper in shape and another to tighten the bolts down. So now we're going to do that to the frame before we tighten the bumper to the frame mounts. Once you have the major adjustment, we're going to fine tune it with the bolts that hold the bumper to the mounts. So get any rotation or final up and down that you want and tighten it down. I've got the adjustment done. Now I'm going to plug my connections back in. All right, go back through, make sure all your bolts are tight, zip tie any sagging wires, check the function of your parking sensors and your license plate lights, and that wraps it up, guys. Thanks for watching. For more information, check us out at backwoodsadventuremods.com.